Good afternoon and welcome to Cambridgeshire County Council's Shareholder Sub-Committee. The Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and use social media during the meeting. Can I ask so that everyone present turns their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? Please be aware that the meeting is being live streamed and that a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the County Council's website. There is no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we will leave via the side doors and use the fire escape next to the kitchen to make our way to the assembly point in the car park. That's that fire exit there. Item number 1 is the notification of the Chair and Vice Chair 2025 to 2026. To note the appointment of Councillor Karen Young as the Chair of the Shareholder Subcommittee and myself, Councillor Ros Hathorn, as the Vice Chair of the Municipal Year 2025 to 2026. These appointments were made by the Assets and Procurement Committee on the 10th of June 2025. Item number 2. Item number 2 is apologies for absence and declarations of interest. Would the Democratic Services Manager please report any apologies for absence?
I've received apologies from Councillors Murphy and Young, and I have Councillor Wilson and Councillor Clark substituting today.
Thank you. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? That's none. Right. Item number 3. Minutes 19th March 2025 in action log. We're being asked to approve the minutes of the Shareholder Subcommittee on 19th March 2025 as an accurate record. If any member does not agree, would you raise your hand now? In which case I will take them. I see no objections to the proposal to approve the minutes as an accurate record, so we'll take that as carried unanimously. An updated action log is also included in the published papers for this meeting. Can you update the subcommittee, Michael, on the one outstanding action?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Yes, I do actually have a illustrative diagram that we will put up on the website. I will take subcommittee members, though, through that and subs to that committee or to this committee through that just to sense check it before we publish something, because I think it's self-explanatory. But then, as I said to Councillor Bowden at a last committee, I would say that I wrote it, but we'll sense check it and have something on the website before the next subcommittee.
Thank you. That's great. Right. Item number 4 is the This Land Limited board recruitment. The Executive Director of Finance and Resources to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. The paper sets out that this is a matter reserved to Council. The Council has delegated through to this subcommittee decisions relating to this land, hence why we are here today, following a number of vacant posts. In March, this committee received a report following an identification of the skills needs related to the board and its future need. In relation to that, I would highlight that we have 2 non-executive directors, independent non-executive directors already in place, Wendy Colgrave and Julia Gregory, who were recruited on a certain skill set, and therefore their skills were compared against theirs and the future need, which meant that we were moving forward with strong governance, financial matters, and a number of other skill sets, which myself and the interim chair, who was Julia Gregory, interviewed a large number. We had a very high caliber, high quality field putting applications in for this. As a result of those interviews, as you'll see within the pack, we have 3 excellent candidates that we put forward to this committee for recommendation, including noting Barbara as the preferred chair, and I'm happy to take any questions on the paper as it stands.
I would now like to invite, so we ask the members of the public first. I'd now like to invite two members of the public to present their questions to the committee. Could I remind you that you have 3 minutes to present your question? The traffic light indicator will turn amber when you have 30 seconds remaining. I may allow questions from committee members to the public speakers for clarification only. So if I invite the first public speaker, number 1, Mr. Charles Warner.
Will Cambridgeshire County Council give local taxpayers assurance that there will be no more funding of land transfers with or without public consultation in compliance with S3 of the Local Government Act 1999, the general duty of best value authorities? The public was not consulted in 2016 before the company was incorporated. Since then, this land has been lent over 120 million, with nothing to show for it except £50 million of losses, 76 houses sold, 120 million of outstanding debt, 95 million of which is now unsecured. This question comes following correspondence with the local government minister at MHCLG and the minister's recommendations that the local taxpayers submit formal complaints to Cambridgeshire County Council about its record and conduct in relationship to this land. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, do you have a reply?
Thank you. Yes, through you, Chair. The Council delegates decision-making to the Shareholder Sub-Committee, as I mentioned a few moments ago. And as such, any decisions around this Land Limited's business plan would be considered, discussed and decided on by this subcommittee. This includes the future strategy of the company, including its holdings. If the matter required any amendment to the financial plan of the council, this would be considered by the Council Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee. Where appropriate, following the test of public interest, some information may need to be withheld due to commercial sensitivity. However, the council aims to maintain an open and transparent reporting where it can. Reports to this subcommittee have confirmed that the paybacks the council has received to date from this land include £78.8 million of capital receipts and £42.6 million of interest up to 2024, whilst also acknowledging recoverability of loans as a consideration for the council. In relation to loan security, it should be added that in 2023, the council added a floating charge to provide security against all assets held by this land, including sale proceeds. And the council notes that this land are required to engage local residents through the local planning system, and therefore there are a number of routes in which the public and members would be aware and engaged in any future process.
Thank you. And thank you for your question, Mr. Warner. If you could take your seat. I'd like to invite Mr. Andrew Rowson to ask his question.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you, Chair. This subcommittee was set up last year following a report by the monitoring officer citing government guidance, including the Local Partnerships Local Authority Company Review Guidance. I'm going to quote a little bit from that. It said, "The council should ensure, for the sake of openness and transparency, that reviews of entities by committee or executive can be viewed by the public where feasible. There should be documented evidence of transparent member and officer scrutiny, oversight and approval of business plans. There should be evidence of an up-to-date business plan that is reflective of the current circumstances and environment in which the entity operates. Other council-owned house building companies have published their business plans, and in 2022 and 2023, this land's business plans were published unredacted as agenda items by the Strategy and Resources Committee, chaired by the council leader. My question is, can the subcommittee explain what is different about this land's latest business plan that it is being withheld from the public rather than being published, but with any genuinely commercial sensitive details redacted, as was the case, for example, with the 2021 Avison Young shareholder review of this land? Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, do you have a response?
Thank you. And again, through you, Chair. The council, through this subcommittee, did not approve a draft business plan submitted by this land limited in January 2025. However, it did approve, excuse me, an outline business plan for 25-26 at its meeting in February 2025. As a result, the subcommittee asked for a more detailed business plan to come forward, and this will now be considered by the subcommittee on the 24th of July 2025. At this meeting, it is intended that the plan will be publicly available. However, certain details will be kept confidential to protect the commercial interest of the company. And that was the approach applied in 2022 and 2023, which also contained exempt commercial information from publication.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Mr. Rawson.
Am I allowed a supplementary?
I'm sorry, no.
That's against the rules.
Yep, that's against the rules.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could you possibly- Members, we will now return to our discussion of this land limited board recruitment. We'll ask questions, and then I'll give an opportunity for debate. So do any members have any questions? Councillor Wilson, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On page 17 of our pack, it talks about the different reserved matters, some of which are for the approval of the shareholder, which is us, including appointing or removing the independent chairman, appointing or removing any non-executive director. Those two are highlighted in yellow. And it also says setting or changing non-executive directors' remuneration. In negotiating with these people, have we indicated the remuneration that is likely to be agreed and the time commitment that they are expected to put in? Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that part of the advert and the recruitment process, all candidates were made aware of the set figure in terms of remuneration and the likely hours, and part of the questioning also considered their capacity to undertake the role required and the demands on that. Chair, I hope that responds.
Is it appropriate for us to know what those were, or is that not in the public domain, in which case I'm happy to keep quiet?
I will need to check in terms of remuneration. I think it is in the public domain, but I will revert to a written response if I may, Councillor.
Any other questions? So I have a question. This is obviously a very important business for the county council, and we want to make sure we have the top people, and it looks like an extremely thorough recruitment process, and we set out the criteria that we felt were essential to this role, and on paper they look like excellent candidates. Is there any way we can, so if it was a job within the county council, there'll be ongoing performance monitoring. Is there any way in which that operates and we can do that? How do we know if these people are delivering when they take on the role?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and as was alluded to in one of the public questions just then, we have the position whereby advice and guidance, such as local partnership guidance that we follow thoroughly, recommend that there is a performance review of the board on a regular basis, including reporting to this subcommittee in terms of its performance in terms of attendance, decision making, training, and the like. So you will receive a report at a future meeting of this subcommittee that will pick up those items.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, can I just follow up on that, Michael? If it was a county council appointment, we would normally, particularly a senior one, which is really important to the well-being and ability of the county to perform, we would get more information than being presented with one candidate. So can we be assured that you and Julia have thoroughly investigated alternative ways of recruiting, and that we've definitely got the right people here? They seem good, but I have no idea what the market is available.
Yes, through you, Chair, I'm quite happy to provide the candidate pack and the information surrounding the recruitment, if members so wish. We used an external agent in terms of marketing this role with a headhunting focus around particular industries, sectors, and individuals that identified a very long list in excess of 30, for which there was a shortlisting meeting which shortlisted down, I think, to 12. And then all 12 were interviewed on a range of topic and subject matter by myself and Julia, with scoring and feedback available and provided to the candidates, all of which can make available if members so want.
Any further questions? So can I ask, so this land is a very specific type of organisation in that it's not enormous and it's not tiny. And obviously, yeah, so the people here have got local government experience, and and you understand that to be, or there's different people with different qualifications. Do they recognise the challenges of delivering for a company of this size, and how were they asked to characterise, or how did you challenge that they understood what the challenges were of operating a company this size?
So there were 10 questions asked. Those questions included: what did the candidates see as the 3 opportunities and risks associated with the company? It also included what they felt were the particular surroundings in relation to Cambridgeshire and the housing development market. They were asked questions about their understanding in terms of the financial position, as well as their experience in all of the sector, including their engagement and understanding of local government and what they could bring to the board in terms of that experience. So that was the type of calibre of questions. Again, quite happy to circulate those questions to councillors as well.
Would anybody like to debate this in any way? Do we all feel happy? All right, 1 second. Oh yes, no, that did remind me of a question. So Cambridgeshire is very specific. So Cambridge, so like anywhere, but Cambridgeshire definitely has areas which have very specific characteristics, and how you develop properties in different places is quite different. And you can understand the market really well in Cambridge, and it might be completely different because it's got very different characteristics. If the appointees aren't local, did they understand that, or were you happy that they would quickly appraise themselves of that, so they were in a position, are they ready to understand the different geographical challenges and economic challenges in Cambridgeshire?
A number of the candidates do have links through to Cambridgeshire and Cambridge through other roles that they have held, as well as previous schooling. The position was discussed at a board recently, so they've already attended a training session in terms of the awareness, and their experience across the entire geography and the entire scale of the sector was one of the factors that convinced us in terms of their overall ability to understand not only the type of company but the geographical area. So they have worked in multiple geographical locations with multiple challenges and been able to adapt, and could show evidence of that.
Thank you. And if you hadn't found the right candidates, can I clarify that you wouldn't have proposed all three today?
Absolutely correct, Chair. We would have gone back round the loop in terms of the various options that we would have had, but I'm grateful that we are able to propose three today.
Thank you. So, Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, one other thing occurs to me. In the discussions that you've had with the three candidates, have any of them come back with any suggestions for improvements in the way either we work as a shareholder group, or the board itself is constituted, or this land works?
The short answer is because I attended a board training and development session last week where the three individuals were taking place. Yes, they all made recommendations.
Well, and that's excellent, I guess. Obviously, at some stage, that information will come back to us, presumably as part of the business plan in whenever it is, July or so. Okay, thank you.
That is correct. Forgive my coyness. There is much to be worked through in terms of the governance, right the way down from the business plan to the simple dynamics of how as shareholders, how as board members they should approach shareholders and work around that in terms of ensuring a strong relationship, as well as the expectations from this committee in terms of how those board members will be quizzed and challenged on their future performance. So there's a whole range of sharing of experience of what had happened at other boards they'd sat on that was very helpful, and that we'll be integrating into the development as we move forward.
And can I confirm that at that training session you felt that they were not up, they said something that was wildly worrying, you would have responded accordingly, but they reassured you in their performance at that training day?
I did make it quite clear to the three individuals that today was the appointment, and it was something that this committee takes very seriously, and I would be feeding back and be grilled on all sorts of questions.
Councillor Clark.
Similar to Councillor Wilson's question, can I ask that are we making sure that we're having conversations with them about the recruitment process and making sure we're getting advice from them about things that they think could be improved from their perspective?
Absolutely. We followed up feedback with all candidates who applied. I'm not saying that everybody provided that, and we provided feedback to any candidate who wanted that. And we've also had wash-up session with the external recruiter to see what lessons could be learned. Remembering this is a company appointment, one of the things I was keen to learn from the council's perspective was there any lessons for us to learn, seeing as we had such a high caliber and high volume of candidates for this role, something that we don't always see in every council post, and therefore we even looked at whether there was any lessons to take back into the county council.
Any further questions? Any further comments? In which case, the committee is recommended to A, appoint Barbara Richardson as the chair of the company's board of directors, and B, appoint Ian Piper and Jason Green as non-executive directors of the company's board. Can I see those in favour? That is unanimously carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 5, property sale by This Land at Soham Northern Gateway. Before I ask the Service Director, Finance and Procurement, to introduce this report, can I draw the subcommittee's attention to the confidential appendix? If you wish to discuss this appendix, we will need to go into confidential session. However, I would like to discuss as much of this report in public as possible and take the vote in public, because we have been very clear as a committee that we want to be as transparent and open as possible. That said, our duty is to interrogate and scrutinise and make sure that the right decision is made. So if we feel that we need to discuss the confidential items, then we should confidently say that we will do that. So there is a balance there. The duty to scrutinise is absolutely critical. But so at this point, do any members want to, at this point, request that we go into confidential session? Okay, in which case we will proceed. So, Tom, please can I ask you to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. This report is about this land sale of an individual land parcel in the north of Soham. The public report recaps that the committee has received and given consideration to business planning submissions in January and February, and then sets out that there were difficulties last year for this land to pay scheduled interest payments, and as we've just heard, the company is undergoing a series of leadership changes. It is set out in that context that this subcommittee will later this summer give further and full consideration to the company's business plan. But in the public report, we then go on to set out that this land are ahead of that consideration, ready to progress fairly urgently with an individual sale of property, for which the council benefits from legal charges, effectively a mortgage, as well as overage and preemption provisions. The council has previously given permission to release these so that this land could progress with the sale. But as this took place some time ago, and as the outlook, the commercial outlook for this land has since changed, it will be helpful for the subcommittee to be brought up to date and to reconfirm whether there is support to progress in this way. This individual site is one which this land has considered is not suitable for residential homes, and this land now wished to exchange on a conditional contract for the sale of Plot A. Once the sale completes, the effect of providing the releases requested is that this land will receive the sale proceeds, and it should be noted, as the report sets out, that the council has a floating charge in relation to all of the company's assets. So in addition to the fixed charge on the land, a floating charge in relation to all of the assets, including cash. But we will see a reduction in the land assets held by the company at the point that the sale completes. As part of the business plan with this land that has previously been agreed and is subject to agreement in the next meeting, it is envisaged that there will be some earlier repayments of principal. And it is suggested through this report that the council will want to ensure that it has received a repayment equivalent to the value of the disposal under consideration in this case, prior to or simultaneous with the completion of this sale. This is intended to ensure that the council as lender does not see a reduction in its asset security value from this point, and that the position on loan recoverability does not worsen. The confidential appendix then goes on to set out further details and principally about the site itself, and my colleague Becky Francis, I think, from Strategic Assets, I think is available. That sets out in more detail the site, price and terms offered, alignment with the company's business plan, and some risk management considerations. And as the chair has already said, to discuss those points, the committee would need to reconvene in private. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I take questions, I would now like to invite Mr. Malcolm Bolton to present his question to the committee. If you'd like to sit in the guest seat. And can I remind you that the traffic light indicator will turn amber when you have 30 seconds remaining. You have, oh, sorry. You have, and it is on silent. You have 3 minutes if you'd like to start speaking.
In his agenda item 5 report, the section 151 officer writes, with reference to the disposal of the sown parcel of land, in this case, the land will be making principal repayments of the loans equivalent to the value of this property release prior to completion of the transaction, according with loan agreement terms. So my question is, how much loan principal has this land failed to repay to the council in respect of the £78 million or more of land disposals since 2020?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So the council agreed a loan structure with the company that sees the majority of the loans repaid between 2026 and 2030. No loan repayments of principal to date have failed to be repaid. However, the council requires interest to be paid on these loans at commercial rates. In 2024-25, this was deferred due to delayed company receipts in the wake of a slowdown in the market. However, this deferred interest will be recovered over the next 5 years, starting in 25-26. I'd also note that the company has so far repaid 13.3 million of loans as per the agreement, and the council is working with the company to structure the remaining repayments.
Thank you. Thank you for asking a question. Members, before we move to the debate, I can confirm that the local member, Councillor Goldsack, has been consulted on this item and supports the recommendation. Do any members have any questions? Would anybody like to discuss this at all? Councillor Wilson.
And I'm not sure whether this would require us to considering it in confidential session or not. If so, I'll hold up the question. The paper refers to sites A, B, and C, with C being withheld by this land, B being sold and then rebought by the county for a school, and it's plot A, which is out for selling now. Are you able to give us an idea about the relative costs of all of these? Or is that a confidential matter that we should consider another time?
So I can say a little bit on that, Councillor Wilson. So section 3.3 of the report confirms the value that the entire site was sold for. The repurchase of plot B, the value of that is in the public domain, and I can, rather than give you a figure on the spot, we'll provide that figure separately, if that's helpful. And then the value in relation to plot A is in the confidential appendix. So that's probably as far as I can go in the public domain. Yep.
Do we have any further questions?
Chair, just very quickly,
Yep.
my colleague has quickly informed me the value of plot B, which is in the public domain, was £687,500. So I'll get that on record now rather than come back in by delay. Thank you.
In which case, the committee is recommended to renew permission for the proposed land sale by this land at Soham Northern Gateway Plot A for the council's part, enabling the release of the council's registered preemption, planning and sales overages and fixed legal charge at this property. Can I see that all those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'll now move on to item number 6. This is Opus East Joint Venture Overview. The Service Director, HR, will introduce the report.
Thank you. In the nick of time. Yes, thank you and good afternoon. So this is the first time this report has been brought to this committee, and the purpose of the report is to explain the basis of the joint venture that we have with Opus East and the performance of the company since it began in 2016. The paper explains that the company was created in July 2016 by the former General Purposes Committee and began running in January 2017. We had an initial 5-year period for the agreement until the 8th of January 2022, and then that was subsequently extended for a further 5-year period following consultation with what was then named Strategy and Resources Committee in 2021. The basis for setting up the company and the key sort of objectives really were to tackle the local authority challenges for ourselves and for other organisations across the region around agency staffing. So specifically, as set out in 2.9 in the paper, we were trying to have a greater influence over the quality and pay of agency workers provided to the council. Obviously, we were trying to find financial savings by reducing the cost of agency workers, also trying to have an improved continuous supply of agency workers, especially in key areas where we rely on them regularly. And it was about securing a resilient and high quality supply of those temporary workers. So section 3 of the report sets out the financial performance, and you'll see in there the turnover year on year and the dividends that have been received by the council in 3.1. You'll see that those increased significantly, particularly around the years where we were in COVID and had to rely on a high number of agency workers, particularly for things around like the COVID testing sites. And those profits and therefore the projected dividends for this year especially have tailed off. But that, of course, is a good thing for us because it means that our reliance on agency workers and spend on them has significantly decreased as well. And that's one of our organisational objectives. The dividends themselves and how they're calculated is covered off in 3.4, which explains that following the unitarisation of Northamptonshire County Council in 2021, the Opus Joint Venture Board then moved from a 3-way dividend split to a 5-way model across the 5 organisations involved. So we now have a proportionately allocated dividend based on the margin earned per shareholder, on the basis that that therefore provides a fair distribution of the dividend aligned to the actual usage for each of the authorities. There have been other benefits for us as well as the financial ones, and I've set out those in section 4. I think the key ones that I really wanted to highlight is that the company has supported us to really reduce our agency spend over the last approach, it's 8 years now, isn't it, by more than £4 million. And that actually has exceeded the expectations of the original business case. Part of that is by also enabling us to fill as many posts as we can, or assignments, I should say, directly through Opus rather than using third-party providers. And where we're able to do that, that saves us money. And they've managed to fill, on average, about 50% of, except for social workers where we do struggle because it's much more niche, but we've managed to fill about 50% directly. So that has helped us reduce the costs. Also, I would say that, you know, the Opus company do work very much in partnership with our in-house HR team. And in doing so, that does help them understand our culture, our values and the priorities for the organisation. So that does help them then to raise and improve, promote, I should say, sorry, our employer brand when they are engaging with candidates and trying to encourage them to come and work for Cambridgeshire. The governance is set out in section 5, and that explains that we have a representative on the Joint Ventures Board of Directors. That's currently myself as the Service Director for HR, and we also have regular contract meetings. So moving forward, I think the key thing to mention is that obviously the contract is the current service arrangement, as it's called, is due to end in January 2027, and we'll have to consider before then whether we need to how we move forward. So I would expect that paper will come to Strategy, Resource and Performance Committee in early 2026 to start looking at the options around that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No public questions on this one. Councillor Bowden, do you have a question?
I may, with your indulgence, Chair, have a few questions. I'm pleased that this item has come before us. You will probably not recall, but when this subcommittee was set up, I was concerned about its terms of reference because it related, at that time, proposed to relate to companies in which we had an interest above a certain amount. And this company, or rather Opus People Solutions East Limited, which I'll come to in a second, we only own 9.6% of the share capital. So I was pleased that it was changed by the last administration and that we are now able to talk about it. But I read through this with great interest, and I'm actually puzzled by the governance mentioned in here. I don't fully understand what Opus East joint venture is. It appears from the way in which it's written here to be a joint venture between 5 entities, which are ourselves, Milton Keynes, and the 3 successors, effectively, for Northamptonshire, which is fine. I understand what a joint venture is, and I understand what's written here. What I don't understand is the relationship between what is called the joint venture and Opus People Solutions East Limited. I wonder if some explanation can be given, or are the two effectively the same?
So I'm just trying to work out what's the best way to explain this. And so there are separate. We each have. So there's Opus East covers Cambridgeshire. Each one of the local authorities have their own subgroup, if you like, I suppose, sub-company of the joint venture, so that we all have our own interests represented differently. So, and the way the company's constructed, there are teams that focus on each area, so serving our interests separately, dedicated to working with Cambridgeshire. I'm clearly not answering your question, I'm afraid. Okay.
Is the joint venture just a means of expressing what the arrangements are within Opus People Solutions East Limited, where each of the 5 entities we've talked about have 9.6% of the shareholding?
I'm not sure I can answer your question. I'm terribly sorry. I think I'll need to go away and come back in a way that I can get the information. I don't know.
It's possible our Section 151 officer may be able to answer.
Tom's not still here, is he? No.
I think the easiest way is to provide a written response.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is, with it not being made quite clear here what the arrangements are, we don't actually see about the dividend payments which come from Opus People Solutions East Limited, where we do have 12 of the 125 shares. And I particularly was interested when this subcommittee was being set up to ensure that the Opus group, for want of a better word, was included, because the way in which ownership exists may well, and certainly appeared to me, to have an influence both in terms of how dividends are paid out and also the preferential treatment for one of the shareholders so far as loan interest is concerned. So that was the reason I was particularly interested in this. And Chair, I could ask all of these questions, but I get the feeling that officers aren't prepared, don't have the information immediately to hand to be able to answer those ownership questions.
Well, maybe just ask the question and we'll see if that, because I thought I understood how the dividends were allocated, but why don't you ask the question and we'll get the answer and see where we get to. Is the question, how were the dividend?
Well, if we're talking about dividends which are paid by Opus People Solutions East Limited, those are proportionate to the shareholdings which exist. And we have an equal amount with the other 4 entities which are mentioned here as being part of the joint venture. But they combined only amount to 48% of the dividends in total which are paid out, the other 52% going to the other shareholder, which has 52% of the shares, which is Opus People, or now called Opus People Solutions Limited, which itself is owned by Suffolk County Council, or was owned by Suffolk County Council, has been transferred to a wholly owned subsidiary of Suffolk County Council. So my concern here is, if we are talking about dividends which are resulting from the work which is done by Opus People Solutions East Limited, the majority of the dividends are actually being paid out to Suffolk County Council, rather than to the 5 members of what's called here the joint venture. So it's I just wanted to understand, is the joint venture something separate, or is it just a convenient way of explaining our joint interest as 5 entities within Opus People Solutions East Limited?
Okay, I think that's not my understanding, but I think probably the easiest way to get the right answer for you is if it's okay, if it's acceptable to go and do a full briefing note on this and make sure we get the full information and send it following on. Would that be acceptable?
I'm not going to flog a dead horse.
Yeah.
I'd be very grateful for that, but I'd also be grateful if that could be brought back to the next committee, because there are some really serious implications in all of that which need to be debated. We can't debate it now. So if that could be brought back to the next committee meeting, I'd be really grateful, Chair.
Yes, I think we should debate that, but perhaps we could make sure we discuss anything else that we might wish to debate in further detail at the next committee now. Do you have any other questions?
Oh, well, there are a number to do with the technical compliance, for example, and I'm assuming that there is no danger of the company. And again, it's this definition. Are we talking about the company, or are we talking about a joint venture between 5 entities? There is a big difference between the two legally, and I'm still quite puzzled about exactly what we're talking about here. But if you have the 20% exemption, which is allowed for a technical company, and I'm interested to know how close we are to the limits of that 20%.
I mean, again, that's not information I have to hand, but I can include that. I'll need to go away and ask those questions of the company, obviously, and come back. So how close are we to the 20%?
And the reason for my interest in that, Chair, is that the amount which is external is very often a really useful boost to the profitability of the company, and therefore to the dividends which come back. And it's interesting to know if we have barely scratched the surface of that, or if we are banging our head up against the 20% limit.
Okay.
Do you have any other areas of interrogation you would like to touch on?
Not, I think, that can be talked about now until we have a quite clear understanding of whether we are talking here about Opus People Solutions East Limited, or we're talking about a different entity, which is a joint venture. There is a difference between a joint venture and a limited company. I suspect, but I could be wrong, that we're talking here about the limited company. But I might be totally wrong about that, which is why I really need some clarification on that. And I fully accept I can't get it right now, which is why I'm asking that this item be tabled for the next meeting.
Yes, I think it'd be a good idea to bring a report back to the next meeting. I mean, it would be very good, though, to make sure that any questions we think we might wish to ask in that report, we have asked today, so that we can make sure that we've got all the detail we want.
I was just going to say, I think what may be helpful is if I can try and provide the briefing note as quickly as possible, and then if there are questions that arise from that, if you could let me know what they are, then I can make sure we've got the right people in the room and the right answers for you at the next meeting, if that helps.
That's extremely interesting, and there are 1 or 2 questions which I can raise now. First of all, I should say what my history is on this. I was the last chair of LGSS, Local Government Shared Services, before it was abolished, and that was primarily because of Northamptonshire breaking up and the difficulties involved in that, which caused us to enter into the agreements with what was a Suffolk County Council wholly owned company, and become part of the Opus group in various ways. And when that happened, I wasn't happy about the arrangements, and I have continued not to be happy. And now we've actually got a committee where I can express that unhappiness. And there are 2 elements which I'm unhappy about, in principle. The first is it still the case that the operations which exist, which benefit all the 5 entities which are part of it, that in that operation, the profits which are being generated from that operation primarily go in the form of dividends indirectly to Suffolk County Council rather than to the 5 entities. The second is it correct that in fact this entity is a wholly owned? It is a subsidiary, being more than 50% of Suffolk County Council's trading company, which they've set up. And the third is I'd be very interested to know what the arrangements have been and what the changes have been to any loans that there have been between the 5 participants and Suffolk County Council and the company. because certainly when I last looked at this, which was a number of years ago, I was very unhappy about the way in which loan interest seemed to favour Suffolk County Council in terms of the way in which money was drawn away from the company rather than others. I haven't got up-to-date information at all, so I'd be very interested to know the history over the last 5 years of what's happened with any loans which have been made between participants, between shareholders and the company, and what the current situation is, and what the arrangements are for interest on those loans.
Thank you. In which case, we will leave this item and return to it next month. Oh, Councillor Wilson. And yes, and then any other questions?
No, I just wanted to build on what Chris has just said. So on page 43 at the bottom of a table, it talks about the dividend received, presumably to Cambridgeshire County Council, of about £10,000, of which a total, and there was a total dividend of £80,000. So I think this is relating to what Chris has said, who's getting the rest of it, and are we convinced that they're getting a fair proportion for the amount of effort that they are putting into getting the agency workers or whoever? And then my other question on the next page, page 44, says, and your second bullet, of the placements made in 2024, excluding social work, 50% were filled via Opus's own talent pool, implying the other 50% came from other means. So I'm just interested in what those other mechanisms were and how we were able to ensure that the quality and the cost to the council was appropriate.
Thank you. Okay, so on the dividend, the first question, the dividend, the split of the dividend is based on usage of the, but clearly more complicated, as Councillor Bowden has raised, and I will take away and answer that, get that answered in writing. In terms of the 50%, the way the system works is that when there's a requirement for an agency worker, the request goes into Opus, and for the first 24 hours, they use their own talent pool, their own system to try and source an appropriately skilled and qualified agency worker for that assignment. If they're unable to source it internally, which is cheaper for us to do that, they then have, can't remember how many, well over 100, maybe over 200 organisations that they work with, that they then put that assignment out to. So it might be another private agency that will provide for us, but obviously that's more expensive. So the intention is always to try and source from their own talent pool first to keep the costs down. We know that can't always happen with some specialist roles and the difficult market with social workers. We can't get them people to sign up with Opus directly, but that's the way that operates. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, so the recruiting manager passes the request over to Opus and they provide the people, that is what you're saying?
Yes, there's a system that's an electronic system the request goes into, and it feeds through to, they then push that out to all the people that are registered with them to see if they're interested. And if they don't manage to fill it that way, then they open up 24 hours later to the wider market to try and fill it.
Are there any other questions? In which case, our members are all happy that this report is noted, with a commitment that we will bring another report to next month's committee. Councillor Bowden, are you able to attend next month's committee?
I will very much do my best to do so. I may have to cancel another meeting, but I'm interested enough that I will do that if at all possible.
So not planning to be in a different country or anything?
Yes, I am, but I'll come back if necessary.
Well,
I should just check what date is the next meeting. I haven't got it on the top of my head.
I mean, we could postpone it till September, I imagine.
Oh, it's
or whenever. Well, no, when is that? When are the next two committee meetings? Let's find out.
24th of July. I've just been informed. I will do my very best. May I just ask if particular attention could be paid to the accounts of Opus People Solutions East Limited It may be, of course, that's exactly what was being talked about as the so-called joint venture, but there is a lot of information in there about the profits which have been made by the company, and I'd be particularly interested to find out what's happening with our 12 out of the 125 shares so far as the net value of that company is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. In which case, we'll move on to item 7, the committee agenda plan. If the Democratic Services Manager can introduce this item.
Chair, the agenda plan is, as the Chair says at item 7, we have an additional meeting on the 24th of July to look at the issues referred to with this land earlier on, and obviously we'll be adding the opus item. Happy to take any questions or any additions to the plan.
Councillor Wilson.
Can I just clarify, the meeting on the 24th of July, will that be entirely, or that the list land bit be in confidential session, or you'll do as much as you can in public and then, if necessary, move to confidential session?
Oh.
It'll be the latter. We will produce a public report, but there will be confidential appendices due to the commercial nature, as you can understand, in relation to the trading activities. But therefore, the debate will kick off in public.
And as ever, we will endeavour to do as much in public as possible, particularly with this land, which we know is a very high-profile item. But equally, the interrogation, the scrutiny is absolutely critical to what this committee does. Right, so I will take the agenda plan as I have exercised my discretion to allow this next public question, which was received after the deadline. I would now like to invite Mr. John Oakes to present his question to the committee. If Mr. John Oakes would like to come forward, if you could sit in the chair where the other public presenters have sat. Could I remind you that you have 3 minutes to present your question. The traffic light indicator will turn amber when you have 30 seconds remaining. And I may allow questions from committee members to the public speaker for clarification only. So please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, particularly for your indulgence over the late submission of this due to IT malfunctions. In their 2023-24 year-end financial report on TLL, auditors KPMG recommended that councillors involved in running TLL via this committee needed financial training. Did the council accept KPMG's recommendation? And can you say if any councillors have received training in line with that recommendation?
Thank you for your question. Michael?
Thank you, Chair. The councils continue to learn, including taking actions from a report commissioned by Avison Young in 2021 that identified a number of significant improvements. This saw a number of new non-executive directors appointed. A recent review of the skills and capacity of the board has led to further changes, as noted earlier on in this report. And this includes replacing a councillor NED position with an independent NED role. The council has also set up, as has been identified earlier on, the Shareholder Sub-Committee to lead on commercial companies, including this Land Limited. All members of this subcommittee and substitutes have received or will be receiving, as we have a number of new councillors, externally led training on their roles and responsibilities, as well as the complexities of overseeing a company's relationship as a shareholder. Ongoing training on commercial matters is also and will also be provided to councillors as appropriate, and will be responding to the recommendations raised by KPMG in due course to the Audit and Accounts Committee, of which Councillor Bowden is chair, I note.
Thank you very much for your public question. And I have had this training. This is a committee that's taken a lot of external expert advice, and we have scrutinised this expert advice, sometimes in public session and sometimes in confidential session. But this is a committee that is aware that the knowledge and the expertise may lie outside of this committee, but we have the role of interrogating and scrutinising what is done within this council, and that is something we are taking very seriously. Can I confirm that the agenda plan is noted? And that, are we happy, Ms. Michelle? That concludes today's business. I now declare the meeting closed.